Hi everyone, and welcome to Truth Over News. Last week, the FBI inadvertently disclosed a warrant application that lays bare the incredible corruption that is eating away at our nation's capital. The warrant was quickly removed from the internet, but we have a copy and it is explosive. The warrant shows an intricate scheme of corruption involving a former US ambassador as well as the current president of the highly influential Brookings Institution, the Democratic think tank where both impeachment activist Fiona and Igor Danchenko, Christopher Steele's fake source, worked. The warrant was issued in a case brought against Richard Olson, a former US ambassador to Pakistan and to the United Arab Emirates in the Obama administration. Olson pleaded guilty in April for his role in an illegal lobbying campaign on behalf of the government of Qatar, an oil-rich Gulf nation. Olson is alleged to have colluded with retired four-star General John Allen, the president of the Brookings Institution, in getting the Trump administration to change its Qatar policy. In return, they were showered with cash and other benefits. Olson received at least $200,000 and Allen received a further $20,000. Late last month, Olson's lawyers complained to the judge assigned to Olson's case that, unlike Olson, Allen had not been charged with any crime. But there were no details as to what Allen's involvement in the scheme was. Olson received limited immunity in exchange for a plea agreement from the government. This means that Olson can't be charged for additional information he provides, but it also means that the public can't find out what's going on. This is where the warrant application comes in that was accidentally uploaded last week. It spans 77 pages, which are chock full of incriminating evidence and details which, but for appearing briefly online, we would have never heard about. The warrant, which was issued in April of this year, sought data stored on Apple's iCloud. Specifically, the warrant sought any data held by Apple in connection with email accounts used by Olson, Allen, and another man, Imad Zubairi, an American businessman who was part of the lobbying scheme. Zubairi has since been sentenced to 12 years imprisonment in connection with illegally lobbying high-level US government officials in a number of cases dating back to at least 2014. An affidavit that is attached to the warrant sets out a complex scheme which began when the United Arab Emirates and other Gulf states cut ties with Qatar on June 5, 2017, citing Qatar's alleged support for Iran and for terrorism. As part of their efforts, Gulf states also closed sea lanes and air traffic to Qatar. The following day, June 6th, President Trump tweeted his support for the Gulf states' moves against Qatar. During my recent trip to the Middle East, I stated that there can no longer be funding of radical ideology. Leaders pointed to Qatar. Look. The affidavit alleges that Olson, Allen, Zubairi, and Ahmad al-Rumai, a high-ranking Qatari government official for whom Zubairi worked, set out to convince the United States to intervene, defuse the possibility of sanctions, and negotiate a resolution favorable to Qatar. At first, the lobbying efforts appeared to be above board. On June 6th, Zubairi and Olson met with Rumai in Washington, D.C. to discuss their campaign. According to a Zubairi associate who is now cooperating with the FBI, they plan to hire an attorney and register under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, or FARA. However, Olson and Zubairi had at the same time also initiated a back channel behind-the-scenes effort involving Brookings president John Allen. On the evening of June 6th, Olson introduced Allen to Zubairi via email. They spoke on the phone the next morning and later met for lunch. At first, Allen suggested writing op-eds in support of Qatar. He offered to find authors and said that he would consider writing op-eds personally. But the scheme quickly grew more nefarious. The next day, Allen told Olson that he needed to have a chat about numbers. Allen suggested traveling to Doha for a speaking engagement, which could be used as a pretext for getting paid for his help in the lobbying effort. Zubairi agreed to pay Allen $20,000. Incredibly and brazenly, Allen put his illicit scheme in writing. What we can do is call and treat my visit to Doha over the weekend as a speaking engagement, which I've done before, for which I'd be compensated at my standard rate. Then we can work out the fuller arrangement of a longer-term relationship over the weekend. Notice how Allen's email puts the term speaking engagement in quotation marks. Even more astonishingly, Allen states that he used the same fake speaking engagement pretext before. Put another way, this wasn't Allen's first rodeo, whereby he would illegally lobby and then conceal the whole affair as a speaking engagement. It is not clear from the affidavit whether the FBI is looking into Allen's other schemes and payoffs. The day after Allen sent his incriminating email, Rumai demanded that Allen obtain an official statement from the US government asking for de-escalation in the Qatar situation. Allen then emailed Trump's National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, and requested that the White House or the State Department issue a statement calling on all sides to seek a peaceful resolution to this crisis and to act with restraint. Recall that McMaster had just replaced General Michael Flynn, who was wrongly fired after the FBI set him up. It appears as though Allen did not tell McMaster about the nature of his involvement or that he was being paid for his efforts. The affidavit states that McMaster has been cooperating with the FBI as a witness. Later that same day, June 9th, the day when Allen urged McMaster to issue the statement about Qatar, U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson did indeed make a public statement. And lo and behold, that statement shifted away from Trump's tweet as well as from earlier White House statements. Tillerson went even further than the de-escalation that Rumai had demanded. Tillerson called on Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Egypt to ease the blockade against Qatar. The next day, June 10th, Olson, Allen, and Zubairi all traveled to Qatar, where they met the Emir of Qatar, as well as the Emir's brother, the foreign minister, the defense minister, and other senior Qatari officials. According to notes which Olson handed to the FBI as part of his immunity agreement, the discussion centered on how to convince the Trump administration to help Qatar with respect to the diplomatic crisis. Allen and Olson also conveyed to the Emir that they had connections with Trump administration officials that placed him in a position to help Qatar. They specifically named McMaster, Tillerson, Defense Secretary James Mathis, and Secretary for Homeland Security John Kelly. Olson's notes of the meeting also state that Allen and Olson told the Emir that they were able to mold US government policy through McMaster. They further suggested that the Qatari government used the United States Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar as leverage to exert influence over the US government. Afterwards, Allen and Olson met the Qatari Minister of Defense, with Allen allegedly advising the minister to use the full spectrum of info ops, black and white, to control the narrative in the United States. Black ops are covert and often illegal operations designed in a way that conceals government involvement.